Assalamualaikum. In this presentation, I discuss about approaches in language teaching. I'm from Fakultas Ilmu Budaya Universitas Brawijaya Malang, and the book that we use in this class is Teaching English as a Foreign Language or TEFL in Indonesian Context, a Practical Guide. This book is published by UP Press. And for chapter 2, after completing this chapter, students are expected to identify traditional language teaching methods and then identify some current teaching learning approaches and analyze principles of teaching and learning principles in planning their lessons. Learning approaches is divided into two kinds. The first is traditional language teaching method and current language teaching method. Traditional language teaching method consists of grammar translation method or GTM, direct method, reading method, audiolingual method, cognitive method, eclectic method, silent way, and communicative language teaching. Meanwhile, current language teaching method consists of Constructivist Approach, Contextual Approach, Quantum Teaching and Learning, Cooperative Learning, and Teaching Integrated Skills. Conventional language teaching method deals with description of a number of language-centered methods or traditional language teaching method, for example, GTM, DM, RM, ALM, the silent way, and CLT as adapted with some addition from Selce Murcia 2001 and Brown 2007A. Grammar translation method is can be called the oldest method, and this method focuses on teaching grammar and translation. There are some following characteristics, such as the use of L1 or mother tongue is dominating. The second one, vocabulary is taught in isolation, not in a context. And then words classes are well emphasized and full formulas of teaching grammar. Next characteristic is class is full of grammatical practices which is context-free. Drills of grammar and grammatical sentence pattern, and it does not really pay attention to pronunciation. The second method is direct method. This method is an opposing action to the extension to the teaching of English because the language is communication purpose, which is the opposite of the direct method, is characterized by the following traits. The first is mother tongue or L1 should not be used in the class. The second one, dialogue drilling, is emphasized. The third one is reading aloud is a common activity in classroom. The fourth is grammar is not well emphasized and focus is put more of oral production. Direct method was first used in Indonesia in the early 1960s. Since it was used in the army during World War II, it was commonly referred to as the army method. The next is reading method. As we know that reading becomes the central of teaching and it receives a high importance in language learning because it is believed that reading may open up the knowledge of the word. Reading method is characterized by the following features. The first feature is goal is reading either intensive or extensive reading. The second one, only the grammar needed for reading is taught. The third one, less attention given to pronunciation. And the fourth is the vocabulary is expanded as quickly as possible. Though vocabulary learning is regarded as more necessary than grammatical skills. Now we go to audiolingual method. This method is proposed by Skinner. This method is still the descendant of behaviorism, and it is still an oral-based approach. This method believes that learning a language is about habit formation. The characteristic of ALM are as follows. The first is Next content is new content. The first point is new content is delivered in the form of dialogue. The second one, memorization and imitation are emphasized. The third one, grammar is taught in a chronological order. And the fourth is drilling is frequently used to introduce concept. Now we go to cognitive method. This approach is proposed by Noam Chomsky. Cognitive method, or CM, emphasizes on the communicative aspect of language. Therefore, language production, like speaking, is more emphasized, and the idea of native speakerism is boosted. In this method, students should be more actively responsible in their learning. The characteristics of CM are as follows. The first is everyone is deemed to speak nearly as native speakers of English. The second one, student-centered, is applied, so teacher function as facilitator. The third one, error is tolerated and it is regarded as common thing. Different from ALM, in which error should be avoided, CM acknowledges that students might produce errors as an evidence of learning. And the fourth, both receptive and productive skills are regarded equally important. Next, silent way. The silent way comes from the language theorist Caleb Categno. Silent way was characterized by a problem-solving approach to learning and uses discovery learning procedures. Categno 1972 believed that learners should develop independent autonomy and responsibility. Based on Richards and Roger 2001, summarized the key points behind the silent way teaching method are as follows. The first is learning is facilitated if the learner discovers or creates rather than remembers and repeats what is to be learned. The second one, learning is facilitated by accompanying or mediating the physical objects. And the last, or number three, is learning is facilitated by problem solving involving the material to be learned. Well, now we go to communicative language teaching, or CLT. CLT originated with changes in the British language teaching tradition, and it belongs to learner-centered method that is not unified method. Based on Brown 2008, describe the characteristic of CLT as follows. The first is classroom goals are focused on all components, grammatical, discourse, functional, sociolinguistic, and strategic of communicative competence. The second one, language techniques are designed to engage learners in the pragmatic, authentic, functional use of language for meaningful purposes. The third one, fluency and accuracy are seen as complementary principles underlying communicative techniques. At times, fluency may have to take on more importance than accuracy in order to keep learners meaningfully engaged in language use. The fourth is students in a communicative class ultimately have to use the language productively and receptively. In unrehearsed context outside the classroom tasks must therefore equip students with the skills necessary for communication in those contexts. The fifth, students are given opportunity to focus on their own learning process through understanding of their own styles of learning and through the development of appropriate strategies for autonomous learning. The sixth, the role of teacher is that a facilitator and guide, not an all-knowing bestower of knowledge. Students are therefore encouraged to construct meaning through genuine linguistic interaction with others. Okay, now we go to the next point about current language teaching method. The change of teaching emphasis from teacher-centered instruction into student-centered instruction gives way to the emergence of various teaching approaches aiming at how students should learn. Among them are Constructivist Approach, Contextual Approach, Quantum Teaching and Learning, Cooperative Learning, and Teaching Integrated Skills. These approaches and models began to emerge in the last decade of 20th century and were claimed to be applicable to various subject matters. Elective method emerged as an alternative toward the instruction of the previous method. As every method introduced brings both strengths and limitation, elective method is there to serve a solution. The characteristics of elective method are as follows. The first is language learning should be made meaningful and contextual, as language is not a dead body, but it is a means of communication. Translation can be used in classroom practice, but it is suggested to be used for beginner level. And learning language should be directed to the target language, so the use of native language or L1 is minimized. And then the fourth is students' needs should be taken into consideration. If a learning is directed to train students' pronunciation, then using ILM or DM is allowed. In the elective method, a combination of several approaches in teaching is allowed, as a teaching learning process requires the fulfillment of many different goals, which also requires the use of some methods to combine together. Constructivist approach is based on Piaget constructivism theory. There are 6 cycles as quoted from Johnston in Fakultas 2011 as follows. The first is AND, which means the target of objective of the learning. The second one, engagement, for example, involving students in teaching learning activities. The third one is exploration. The fourth is explanation. The fifth is elaboration, and the sixth is evaluation. Now we go to contextual approach. Contextual approach or contextual teaching and learning or CTL claims to be based on constructivist approach. This approach emphasizes teachers' effort to relate teaching contents to student environments and to relate student knowledge to its application in the real life. Some characteristics to be developed in contextual approaches are as follows. The first is concerning with the importance of problem solving. The second one, acknowledging the need to conduct learning activities in various contexts such as home, society, and workplace. The third one is guiding learning toward independent study. The fourth is emphasizing learning on various contexts of students' life. The fifth, encouraging students to learn from peers and group work. And the last one is using authentic or process assessment. There are some elements of contextual approaches. There is constructivism, questioning, inquiry, learning community, modeling, reflection, and authentic assessment. Okay, now we go to quantum teaching and learning. According to Deporter Reader and Singer Nori, 1999, quantum teaching is the orchestration of the variety of the interactions that exist in the around the moment of learning. Quantum teaching and learning, or QTL, also claims to be based on constructivist approach. QTL recommends that the teacher enters the student's world to the teacher world. The deeper the teacher enters the student's world, the more influence can he or she give to the student. In the teaching and learning process, QTL attempts to do the following steps. First, to create enjoyable learning atmosphere, and then to build strong foundation for learning through determining shared goals, constructing shared principles and values, and so on. Next, to arrange enjoyable learning environment and to orchestrate the dynamic teaching learning process. Now we have cooperative learning. So cooperative learning method based on Slevin 1995, hold idea that students should work together to learn and responsible for the teammate learning as well as their own. Cooperative learning has 5 basic elements. The first is there should be positive interdependence among the group members. And then the second, there should be individual and group accountability. The third one, there is a face-to-face interaction to promote the shared success. The fourth, there are interpersonal and small group skills. And the fifth, there is group processing. There are some cooperative learning models such as STAD, Jigsaw, Group Investigation, Think, Pair, Share, Picture-in-Picture, Mind Mapping, Make a Match, and Debate. The last is teaching integrated skills. The current model of teaching language skills is by using integrated approach. In this case, the curriculum designer combines all of the teaching techniques to teach 4 language skills as a whole rather than teach the 4 language skills separately. A course deals with reading skills, for example, will also deal with related speaking, listening, and writing skills, including 3 language components. Okay, I think that's all for today, and thank you for your kind attention. Goodbye. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.